By February of 1964, a brash 22-year-old from Louisville, Kentucky, had just done what almost no one believed possible. He had walked into Miami Beach as a 7-1 underdog. He had talked so much in the days before the fight that reporters didn't know whether to laugh or shake their heads. And then, in front of a stunned world, he had dismantled the most feared heavyweight on the planet, Sonny Liston, so thoroughly that Liston refused to come out for the 7th round. After the final bell, Cassius Clay, soon to rename himself Muhammad Ali, leaned over the ropes and shouted at the press corps below him. He reportedly told them he had shocked the world, that he was the greatest of all time. The reporters weren't sure what to make of him. Neither was America. But here is the question that lingers all these years later. How does a black kid from the segregated South, a place where the rules were stacked against him from the day he was born, end up not just as heavyweight champion, but as the most recognized face on earth? And why, just a few years after winning an Olympic gold medal for his country, did he reportedly throw that medal into a river? And there is one more question, one that even Ali himself once answered in a quiet moment. Of every man he ever stepped into a ring with, who was the one fighter he said truly gave him pause, stay with us. Because the answers tell a story you may remember living through and maybe seeing in a way you never have before. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to Louisville, Kentucky in the early 1940s. Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. was born in January of 1942. If you were in your early 20s in 1960, you were almost exactly his age, coming of age in an America that was changing fast, but not fast enough for everyone. Louisville was a city of contradictions. Beautiful parks, grand homes along the Ohio River, and a rigid color line that told black Americans where they could eat, where they could sit, and how far they were allowed to dream. Cassius grew up in a modest home on Grand Avenue. His father, Cassius S.R., painted signs and murals for a living. His mother, Odessa, kept the household together with quiet strength. By all accounts, it was a loving home, but the world outside the front door was a different story. Accounts from the era describe young Cassius as restless, electric, always talking. His teachers remembered a boy who struggled to sit still, but never struggled to make himself heard. Then, around the age of 12, something happened that set the course of his entire life. Someone stole his bicycle. Furious, young Cassius reported the theft to a police officer named Joe Martin, who also ran a boxing gym in the basement of a local recreation center. Cassius told Martin he wanted to beat up whoever took his bike. Martin told him he'd better learn how to fight first. That gym became his world. Within weeks, the skinny 12-year-old was training every day after school. Within a few years, he was winning amateur bouts across the region. The boy who couldn't sit still had found the one place where his restless energy made perfect sense. But here is something else to hold on to, and we'll come back to it. In 1967, at the very peak of his powers, Muhammad Ali would make a decision that cost him the heavyweight title, his boxing license, and very nearly his freedom. What was that decision? And looking back now with the long lens of history, was it worth it? By the time the 1960 Rome Olympics arrived, 18-year-old Cassius Clay was already something special. He won the light heavyweight gold medal with a style no one had seen before, dancing on his toes, hands low, head moving constantly. throwing combinations so fast the eye could barely track them. The old trainers in the stands muttered that he was doing everything wrong, and yet he kept winning. He came home to Louisville a hero, at least for a moment. According to multiple biographers, the celebration didn't last long. Reports from the era describe Ali returning to Louisville and being refused service at a diner, a white-toned establishment that simply wouldn't seat a black man, Olympic gold medal or not. The details of exactly what happened that day differ depending on the source. But what is part of the public record is the emotional wound it left. Ali reportedly said that the medal began to feel like a lie, a symbol of a country that celebrated him abroad and humiliated him at home. And that, according to those close to him, is why the medal ended up in the Ohio River. He didn't throw away his country. He threw away the illusion that the medal had changed anything. But Cassius Clay did not slow down. He turned professional and began what would become one of the most astonishing careers in sports history, and one of the loudest. He gave himself a nickname, the Louisville Lip. He wrote poems predicting the round in which his opponents would fall. He called himself pretty. He called himself the greatest. He showed up to press conferences like a man who had already read the last page of the book and knew exactly how it ended. Some reporters loved it. Others were offended. Many simply didn't know what to do with a black athlete in 1962 America who absolutely refused to be humble. But behind the showmanship, something deeper was taking shape. Cassius Clay had been introduced to the Nation of Islam in the early 1960s. He listened. He read. He asked questions. And quietly, privately, he was arriving at a new understanding of who he was and what he believed. On the morning after he beat Sonny Liston, he confirmed what many had suspected. He was a member of the Nation of Islam, and shortly after he announced that his name, the name given to him, he said, by a society that had enslaved his ancestors, was no longer his. He was Muhammad Ali. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Many sports writers refused to use his new name for years. Some called it a provocation, others called it un-American. Ali called it freedom. Through the mid-1960s, Ali defended his title again and again. He was fast, he was smart, and he was by almost any measure the best heavyweight boxer alive. Sports writers, ring historians, and fellow champions all said the same thing. And then in 1967 came the decision that would cost him everything. In 1967, Muhammad Ali was at the peak of his physical powers. He was undefeated as heavyweight champion. He was famous across the entire world. And then the United States Army drafted him. Ali refused to step forward at the induction ceremony in Houston. He cited his religious beliefs as a conscientious objector. He reportedly said, in words that became part of American history, that he had no quarrel with the people he was being asked to fight. The consequences were immediate. He was stripped of his heavyweight title. His boxing license was revoked in every state. He was convicted of draft evasion and faced up to 5 years in federal prison. He was 25 years old. For 3.5 years, Muhammad Ali could not fight professionally in the United States. Think about what that means. The best years of an athlete's career gone, not lost to injury, not lost to age, taken. And yet, according to biographers and historians of the era, Ali never wavered publicly. He spoke on college campuses. He became a symbol for the anti-war movement, for the civil rights movement, for young people who were asking hard questions about America. The Supreme Court ultimately overturned his conviction in 1971. He was allowed to fight again, but 3.5 years do not come back. When Ali returned to the ring, something remarkable happened. The man who had been vilified by much of the mainstream press in 1967 was now, by the early 1970s, becoming something close to beloved. America had changed. Or perhaps America had simply caught up with Muhammad Ali. He fought Joe Frazier in what was billed as the fight of the century, a bout so anticipated that even people who had never watched boxing cleared their schedules. Ali lost that night. He got up. He kept going. And now the answer to the third question we planted at the very beginning, the one man Ali said gave him pause. It was Joe Frazier. Not because Frazier was the most dangerous puncher Ali ever faced, but because Frazier simply would not stop coming. According to those who knew Ali well, he respected Frazier's relentlessness more than any other quality he encountered in the ring. Their trilogy of fights, including the Thrilla in Manila in the mid-1970s, is still considered among the greatest rivalries in sports history. And then came Zaire, 1974, the Rumble in the Jungle. Ali, older now, slower on his feet, against the fearsome George Foreman. Using a strategy his corner called the rope-a-dope, Ali absorbed punishment round after round, waiting, conserving, until Foreman was exhausted. Then he struck. He was heavyweight champion of the world again, the kid from Louisville, the boy who had his bicycle stolen, the man who threw his gold medal in a river, the athlete who gave up 3.5 years rather than compromise what he believed. That is how Cassius Clay became Muhammad Ali, and how Muhammad Ali became, in the words of countless observers across decades, simply the greatest. Memory, if you were watching in those years, and many of you were, Muhammad Ali wasn't just a boxer on your television screen. He was a presence. He was an argument your family had at the dinner table. He was a reason to stay up past bedtime on a Saturday night. For some of you, he was a hero from the very beginning. For others, it took time. But by the end, it's hard to find anyone who watched his story unfold who wasn't moved by it. What do you remember most about Muhammad Ali? Was it the fights, the words, the way he carried himself when the cameras were on, or the quieter moments in between? We'd love to hear your story. Leave a comment below, tell us your favorite Muhammad Ali memory, or the moment you'll never forget. If this story meant something to you, please subscribe to Golden Age Stories. Every week, we bring you the real stories behind the people and moments that shaped your lifetime. Next time, we're going back to Hollywood, to a star whose name everyone knew and whose private story almost no one did. We'll see you then.